All right, we have 4 folks that want to address the school board. During the public comment time, the board will not engage in discussion except to gain clarification. Comments relative to specific personnel or students will be treated confidentially by the Board of Education and will be heard in executive session only. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Matt Warford keeps the time for us and will let us know when that's up. Is that correct, Matt? Okay. The first person is Sarah Kelly.
My name is Sarah Kelly, and I'm a mother of 1 who's in the district. I'm a former Newton Public School alumni. My daughter will eventually be attending Santa Fe, Chisholm, and Newton High School, and I'm here to take a stand for her, as well as the many other children that our board members have sworn to protect and defend. What's being passed around now, you do not have to follow along, it's just for point of reference. I watched the last Board of Education meeting and was taken back when the drafted dress code policy was turned down after hearing from the admin that you yourselves tasked with coming up with. I believe, as well as many others, that this would help improve relationships and trust and improve the educational environment. I was also alarmed to hear that the existing code may inadvertently affect some people more than others, particularly people of color. I shared the meeting online and asked people what their concerns were with the past and present school dress code, and there was an overwhelming response that the majority of people would have supported the dress code that was presented. Many people made references towards the need to allow policies that are currently inclusive and not include people of color. There is an anonymous feedback document that was passed around to you all just a little bit ago and provides real representations of said discrimination. This includes, but not limited to, being able to wear headscarves, head wraps, wave caps or do-rags, and any wrap that could cover a student's head for cultural or religious purposes. I've made reference to the background on such options in your handouts as well that gives insight on the cultural practices of such head coverings. I've also included 2 articles from other states of these policies being addressed and changed to allow for schools to be culturally inclusive. There were multiple stories of children who were giving the ultimatum of taking it off and risking being humiliated or going home, which would amount to 0 learning or participation for the day, which happened here in Newton. And what do you think that child chose? What a power struggle and a blatant disregard for their culture and their need to utilize something so small to be able to cover their head and hair while being able to come and learn. And that should be the goal in retaining students in the classrooms. But we failed this child and we have failed many others from what I've heard. A quote taken from the Kansan yesterday brought up by Newton Rising. You cannot keep dismissing students of color and their experiences under your watch. But we hear it happen frequently. We are constantly over-policing girls' bodies to meet a patriarchal standard that women should be covered so men don't get distracted. To quote the story again in the Kansan that came out yesterday, you cannot police the way young women dress and continue to pretend like that doesn't contribute to rape culture. We've seen recent stories come up with this very same topic, and it needs to be addressed systemically in all areas of school, including but not limited to the dress code. Consistency was another big issue that people brought up in regards to being targeted. Just an example was athletes and the popular crowd being oftentimes overlooked when other kids, specifically people of color, are constantly hounded and reprimanded. I want to pose a question. Do we know the patterns of referrals for dress code violations? What procedure is in place from point A to point B once a violation is given, and how is it followed through, and is it transparent? Is there accountability to make sure the entire process is carried out appropriately and indiscriminately? I have more, but in closing, I am for said dress code changes. Hopefully that group will be bringing that back to you with some improvements, and I just want to say thank you all.
Thank you. Thank you.
The next individual is Ashley Akers.
Okay. Hello, my name is Ashley Akers, and I'm here to raise some concerns about the current dress code at Newton High School. I graduated from Newton High School 5 years ago, and I'm currently earning my master's in landscape architecture at Kansas State University. I am here this evening to address the prioritization of different aspects of the dress code that disproportionately affect female students. These issues were embedded well before my time at the high school and continue to this day. I would like to use my time to address 3 main concerns about the current dress code that negatively impacts the girls of Newton High School. Then I will share a firsthand account from a former NHS student. 1, the removal of females from school, creating class absence. Females are removed from class or sent home for part or most of the day in order to change their clothes that were cited as potential distractions to other students and teachers. 2, public shaming of female students. Females are publicly shamed in front of their peers and teachers. This type of public shaming can negatively affect how these young girls view themselves. 3, perpetuating toxic ideas about assault. These rules are telling girls that it's their responsibility to change other people's actions instead of teaching males and teachers to not view women as objects. It perpetuates the idea that young girls and women are to blame for men attacking them. I will now read a story sent in by a former NHS student detailing the emotional trauma she experienced from the administration's interpretation of the dress code. This is one example out of the 30+ submissions all asked for yesterday that were sent to me. I requested these stories yesterday and they're still flooding in. They all shared how they were negatively impacted by Newton High School's dress code. Here's the story. This is kind of long, so I apologize, but it was cathartic, so thank you. When I was at NHS, I struggled a lot with self-esteem and figured out how to express myself outwardly. I wore baggy clothes and sweaters my first 2 years of school, until I gained enough confidence to wear dresses and skirts and discovered that I felt 1,000 times better wearing them. I came to school nearly every day in a skirt or a dress. I was happy exploring fashion and what I felt comfortable in. Suddenly one day, I got a call to the office where I was told my skirt was too short. Sure, fair enough. I went home and changed. Note that I have always had curvier figure with bigger hips and backside, and despite being a reasonable length, skirts tend to ride up naturally on my body shape and appear shorter than they actually are. It started happening more frequently, where my favorite outfits basically banned from my wardrobe. I was told I was dressing inappropriately almost every week. I started getting very insecure about my body and my outfits. I would spend 10+ minutes looking at myself from every angle to see the length of my clothes. I started doubting myself and having very negative thoughts. I thought I was perceived as a slut, that I was dressing inappropriately, that I shouldn't be comfortable showing any skin. It took me twice as long to get ready every morning, and it was 3 times as stressful. I started hating my body. I started realizing that bigger hips and thighs made every outfit look inappropriate. Though girls with smaller, more modest frames could get away with skirts just as short, if not shorter, than mine. Most days I wore sweatpants or leggings and threw on the same poncho that covered the majority of my figure. I remember one particular incident where I was wearing a dress that was deemed too sexual because it conformed to my body and hugged my curves. The dress went to my mid-calf. I was not showing any cleavage or any leg, and I was not making an effort.
I'm sorry, time. His bell didn't go off, but it's time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Natalia Ramos Stock.
All right, hello, I'm Natalia Ramos-Ba. I also graduated from Newton High School in 2015, and I went on to earn my Bachelor of Science in Journalism from the University of Kansas. Recently, I wrote an article in the Kansan on behalf of my group, Newton Rising, and I would like to address issues concerning dress code today. When I was a senior in high school, the principal at the time followed me from the very front of the school all the way to the back of the school to my honors English class. Not once did she call out my name or try to get my attention in any type of way. I sat in class for about a minute, and then she came in, ruler in hand, on a mission to bust a teenager for wearing a tank top. Typical behavior. Surely this wasn't going to be me, though, because I measured my straps that morning to make sure that this didn't happen to me today. As class had already begun, she came over, straight to my desk, disrupted my learning time, disrupting my classmates' learning time, and my teacher's teaching time, just to measure the straps on my tank top. And never once did she ask me if I consented to being touched, because I didn't. My shirt was visibly within the guidelines. Why was I followed to class? Why couldn't she have stopped me in the hallway and had a private conversation with me? Why was my learning time interrupted by a woman measuring my shirt? Why did she think it was okay to touch me without asking me if that was okay? Why did I have to be humiliated in front of my entire class for a rule that I didn't even break? Does that sound like a productive learning environment to you guys? You claim my shoulders are the distraction, but the true distraction was her interrupting my class. I would like to know how sexualizing teenage girls and publicly humiliating them is a productive learning environment. The fact that I remember this story from 5 years ago should be alarming to you. If I had to endure public humiliation over a tank top, can you imagine the trauma that other girls at NHS have experienced due to the dress code? This is the sad reality that myself and thousands of girls across the country have had to endure. Why do my shoulders matter so much? Why do you spend time policing women's clothing instead of focusing on building meaningful relationships with us? In the last 24 hours alone, we've received nearly 30 personal stories of girls detailing their experiences regarding the dress code at NHS. In the last 6 days, we've collectively received nearly 100 personal stories from people of all ages regarding the horrific experiences at Newton High School. Disciplining young women for dress code violations has repercussions far more troubling than embarrassment or missing educational time. Placing such strong emphasis on young women's bodies may play a large part in their self-definition and perceptions of themselves as sexual objects. Quote from Cecilia D'Anastasio from The Nation magazine. As you can see, policing young girls' clothing goes way beyond disrupting the learning environment. The harsh words my peers have had to hear from adults that are there to teach them, not humiliate them and degrade them, still impact our self-worth years later. That's all I have.
Thank you. Nathan Dominguez.
Mr. Van Rankin said, student achievement, student performance, student capacity should always be our #1 goal, and we can do that through building an inclusive school community that really allows for everyone to be able to excel, and that includes our staff. But you can't excel if you don't attend school because you're targeted and excluded, like many students who have voiced their concerns with the insensitive and non-inclusive dress code policies. The community has felt like this has needed to be addressed for a long time. The conversation with Mallory Morton during a Q&A on October 16th, 2019, you said, "I've heard it through conversations over and over, and I've seen it firsthand. I am not running for school board because I have any sort of personal axe to grind. I'm running because I want all of our students to have every opportunity to excel academically, to be supported as they work toward their goals, and to know they are valued. What better way to show that they are valued and supported than to listen and to adopt their personally drafted dress code policies?" Jennifer Buddy on September 24th, 2019 said, "I value all people of color and I empathize as much as I can with the hardships they have faced in the past and the issues that are still lingering. I would hope the same empathy would resonate with the plight of the culturally sensitive and inclusive policies that students have been talking about for years." On September 25th, 2017, you also said, "Restoring trust in our board is also something that is very important to me. Our community needs to know that the board is representing their needs and that the board has students and teachers at the core of every decision that they make. This obviously speaks for itself. Let's try and understand. Many people in the community, schools, and administrations have worked tirelessly on amending the dress code and have full faith that their needs and desires have been represented." Melissa, you stated on June 11th, 2019, "I want to help facilitate collaborative efforts, encourage stronger ties between the school board, administrators, teachers, parents, and students. I feel we as a school board need to make communication and transparency a priority to keep parents informed and involved." Matt, on your Facebook page on October 30th, 2019, you posted from a teacher, "Matt is always willing to listen to the concerns of teachers. He frequently reaches out to teachers to ask questions about district programs and issues. When the superintendent and a previous school board president discouraged board members from meeting with teachers in our on-board meetings, Matt alone of all the board members went out of his way to meet with the teachers. You listened to the teachers' concerns for over 2 hours and followed up on the concerns that you heard. This statement shows a strong connection between Matt and the teachers and how he listened to the concerns. These proposed dress code policies have been drafted by the very same teachers wanting to be listened to and having their ideas validated and put into action. I think that we can see that we are all in agreement that our kids and our teachers and administration come first. I feel like we have a duty to listen and to finally put that into practice." Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. The next item is seal of literacy.
My name is Nan Bergen. I am the World Language Department Chair and the German teacher at the high school. And my colleague Cheryl Leffler, I need to mention her because one of her goals in the last 2 or 3 years has been the seal of biliteracy and making sure that our district implements it. And so we have been working together on that. In May of 2016, the Kansas State Board of Education approved the seal of biliteracy for Kansas. And in January of 2017 is when this board at the time approved it for Newton High for USD 373. So the seal of biliteracy says that a student has graduated with competencies in reading, writing, listening, and speaking a language. And those competencies are at 2 different levels. There's the silver level that is, according to our ACTFL standards, an intermediate mid level. And then there's the gold standard, which is at an advanced, I think, novice advanced level. That's 2 steps up. So we have 3 novice levels, intermediate levels, and then advanced levels. So we have been attempting to talk to students about this. We sometimes feel like we have, one of our issues that we have is getting the word out to everybody, because you could be biliterate in more than 1 language and never take a foreign language or a world language at the high school, right? You grew up with it. And so you just have to prove somehow. And so we feel like some of those students we have not been able to reach yet. We keep trying, and we send out notifications to juniors and seniors in January and let them know that we're going to be testing, and if they're interested and think that they would like to do that, they should come to an informational meeting. Last year, we had 2 students who were able to achieve the level, actually, John, that was not last year, that was 2 years ago. For John, he was able to achieve it in German and at the silver level. One of the requirements is that they are on track to graduate, so we don't recognize the students in their sophomore or junior years because they haven't graduated yet. Another student last year passed in the Spanish, and I don't know if Kim has made it here or not, Kim Witterick. And I invited both of them to be here today so that I could give them these medals. They both received certificates from the Kansas State Department of Education in promotion of their achievements, and our district is also going to give them a medal for that. We were going to test students this year and we had the testing date set up, and of course it was after spring break and it didn't happen. We contacted students that were interested, and there were 4 now graduated seniors who were interested in doing it, and the state had talked about allowing parents to administer a test that would show them that they could do that. I have not heard yet about those students, but there's a chance that there will be more than just these 2 this year. We are going to be attempting in fall, we'll see how things go, to administer the test to any juniors who want to take it. They can take the test more often than just once, but we would have to wait. I think the test changes like at the end of March, so we'd have to wait till April to test again, or to test like the seniors again. So John Jansen received the silver level seal of biliteracy from the state of Kansas. I'm not going to put this around your neck. We'll social distance. Congratulations. And Kimberly Witterick.
And the next item is a recognition. Dr. Ham. So as you all know, Dr. Ham has retired, or is retired. This is her last meeting with us, and so we got her a little gift. And as I told her, this is not a car, so she's very disappointed. Anyway, a little gift.
Gold, whatever it is,
That's right.
beautiful.
That's right. Dr. Ham's been with us the last 8 years. She was in the district before as a teacher for 7 at Sunset and Santa Fe.
Yes.
And then was an administrator at Santa Fe for 2 years. Oh, I'm sorry, Chisholm for 2 years. So all in all, 17 years? 17 years in the district. So thank you very much for your guidance the last 8 years, and fair winds and falling seas, as they say in the real service. Thank you. Yes. Doing the board agenda won't be quite so easy.
No, it
Because
will
Fred lives in North Newton, so it'll be a lot farther now.
It has truly been my pleasure. My grandchildren, my 2 granddaughters, Lila and Sophie, will continue as 6th graders next year. And so my association with the district will continue. And I plan to attend as many of their events and other events as possible. I came to Newton as a new bride in 1976 and soon to be a new mom. And really this has been home. I've lived here more years than I have lived anywhere else in my entire life. So, it has been truly enjoyable. So, thank you.
The next item is the consent agenda.
I move to approve consent agenda items A through G.
Second.
Moved in second. All those in favor? 6-0. And if, I'll go ahead and take a break. If people want to leave at this point, you're more than welcome to leave. That's fine. We're not going to hold you hostage. Or you can stay.
We're kicking you out.
Yeah, or stay. It's very exciting. Next, let's see, did I vote? 6-0? Yeah, okay. Old business, approved 2020-21 handbooks for pre-work, elementary, and classified.
These handbooks were presented to the board at the last meeting for your review, and we are now asking for approval at this time. There were no significant changes, but the changes were made in red for you so that you could see where those were. We do recommend the changes as presented at this meeting.
Entertain a motion, unless anybody's got any questions.
I move to approve the Cooper Staff, Cooper Family, Elementary Parent, and Classified handbooks for 2020-2021.
Second. Moved and seconded, any discussion? All those in favor? 6-0. The first item of new business is the approval of gift requests.
And before the board moves on, I just want to make note that these gifts were requested to help support the thank you signs that you saw around town. Those were presented to staff members that worked during the pandemic. And our shutdown around our community, we certainly appreciate all those efforts of our staff. And I also want to give a big shout out to Megan Nagel and Sheila Windley, who brought this idea forward as we pursued support for funding it. We're limited in some of the things that we can do to show our appreciation for our staff, and so it's absolutely wonderful. And the stories have been very heartwarming about how much these were appreciated. So again, my sincerest thanks to our community for providing this support for our staff.
I move to approve the gift requests as presented, and we want to thank the Women's Community Foundation for a gift to 373 for the thank you signs in the value of $500. Newton Community Foundation, same thing, value of $500. And we acknowledge and thank the gift requests under $500 from the North Newton Community Foundation at a value of $200, Sunset Elementary PTO in the value of $230, Wild Prairie in the value of $100, Arlen Newell in the value of $100, and Adrian, the value of $100, Ember Hope, value of $360, Stuckey Investments, a value of $150, and Bridges Incorporated at the value of $100.
Moved and seconded. All those in favor? 6-0. Digital marquee sign at Newton High School.
Matt Walford has been working on this, and again, sincerest thanks to our former First Bank of Newton and their donation. So, Matt.
If you recall, at the November 11, 2019 meeting, we brought forth a gift request from formerly First Bank of Newton for that digital marquee sign that sat outside of their main branch location that was valued at just over $80,000. And I've been working with the City Planning Commission as well as the City Commission overall to apply for, get a special use permit, go through their whole list of requirements to allow the district the opportunity to do that. We were granted approval by the Newton City Commission at their last meeting on June 10th. I've attached a letter to the board docs, and they just simply encourage us to reach out to those that are in direct view of the sign. And so what I'm just asking for is what kind of communication would you feel is best for district administration to make with these landowners moving forward, so we have an idea of what to do.
So you're asking us our opinion on the best way to communicate?
Yeah.
What exactly would you be communicating to them?
Basically the process we went through, we applied for and received permission to erect a digital marquee sign. The house will be in direct view of it. Hopefully it's not too glaringly bright at night. We can always turn it off and on, set timers, but just basically that process of what we did, what we're planning to do, and do we want to reach out to them by mail, in person?
How many residential areas are or households like this?
I don't know how many are within with what the city was, what their recommendation was. We do have a list. We had to get a title list from Regier, so I do have a list of all the landowners. It's probably 50 to 100 maybe. So doing it in person would take some time, and with the whole COVID, that might not be the best idea.
I would say the most appropriate way would be to send a letter and making sure they know what the avenue is to get a hold of someone if they have an issue with it.
Right, and you might explain that we can put it on a timer so that it's not, we don't have to call hours of the night. I think that's probably the most important.
Are we planning on putting it on a timer? Or is that,
Totally up in the air right now.
I just don't want to give people the impression that it will be.
But we have the capability to do so.
We should, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I guess I shouldn't say that for certain. I haven't asked that specific question, but there is an employee at Interest Bank that was her job when it was there. So she's offered to come out and give anybody that needs the training so that they can use it. But I'm pretty certain that they can put it on the timer.
I think just send a letter explaining that it's going to be going up, questions and sort of concerns who to contact.
Okay. Then I assume that through the process with the city, that they would.
They had to notify everybody as well.
So they probably already kind of, they knew this was coming.
Yeah.
Did anybody, was there an objection?
Not that I knew of. They did have to put their protest petition in the paper, so it's been in the paper, but who all reads the paper? Everybody's guess.
You feel like you have enough direction at this point? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Review of Opportunity Academy staff handbook.
This is the first viewing of the staff handbook for Opportunity Academy. Tyler Swally is presenting this for review, and it will come back to the board at the July meeting for approval.
Any questions? Next item is the discussion of filling the board vacancy of Toby Tyler. And so at this point, we just need to decide how we want to proceed filling that vacancy, correct? Anybody?
Well, I think it might be good to give a little rundown for the community to know what our options are.
Sure, I mean, we can, it's up to the board to decide which path you want to do it. We have to wait 15 days from the publication, which, Jamie, do you remember when that came
That was a week ago.
A week ago tomorrow? Okay. So once the 15 days run, then we can meet anytime after that and select somebody. You can do everything from just pick somebody at that meeting, or you can ask for resumes or questionnaires. You can have the people come in and interview them. But everything that you do with it has to be done publicly. None of this can be done in executive session. So really, it's the gambit, and it's up to the board to decide. There's no, the statutes don't list a particular procedure to fill it, so it's up to you.
I am in favor of taking applications. I think it should be open to the public and who's interested in the position, and then we review and select from there. I don't like the idea, I didn't like the idea the last time this happened, where the board just sat there and chose without any, anyone having an opportunity to step forward. So that would be my choice, to take applications or resumes, whatever you want to call it.
So is there interviews with that, or do we just look at the resume and kind of?
I guess that's up for discussion. But it's all public, so I would just say, bear in mind that all of these candidates are going to have to do this publicly.
I too am in favor of doing an application type of process. One thing that I am concerned about with the idea of interviews is that at the end of the day, all of these people will be our neighbors and our community members, and I want to be sure that we are very positive with our communications and with our feelings. I would hate to drag that out and battle it out in any sort of public way, because they're our friends and neighbors long beyond this, so I want to be very careful how we handle it, but I would like to receive information, community involvement, why they want this position, and hear feedback from them.
I guess my thought would be to have them submit a resume, kind of give us an idea of their background, and then maybe limit it to one page, a statement of why they want to be on the board, and maybe they can highlight what they want to highlight within that process. And just have those things. Can we have them delivered here to Joni, to the board office? Is that appropriate? And then can Joni then package them up and send them out to each of us?
There is a handout that is some suggested questions from KSB.
Right.
So you could pick a couple of those, send us your resume and answer some of these questions if you feel like some of those would give you better guidance, or just an open-ended, why do you be on school board?
I kind of like the open-ended approach,
I agree. I want to hear what they have to say.
the open-ended approach of just what they have to say.
I like that as well.
Sometimes choosing questions is hard.
Well, and we know that sometimes somebody has something to offer that the questions don't ask for. And I want to know what you bring to the table. How can you bring a different perspective? What can you add to this? How can you represent a different portion of the community that may not have a voice at this table? So I'm on board with that.
So timeline.
What do you think? I would like to fill it, if we could, if possible, do it at a special meeting before the next regular meeting. And I think the next regular one is July 13th.
So we can do July 1st, or after would be after the 15th date.
Right, and I kind of like maybe wait
Well, the
till
first would be the 15th.
after the July 4th meeting.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not,
So we're talking special meetings for this.
Special meeting, and that would be the one item we deal with.
So if we open for applications now, which we can do, correct? We just can't appoint someone before then. To be submitted before July 3, because that's before the holiday, that gives almost 2 weeks. Go ahead.
Can I say before July 2nd?
Oh, right.
July 3rd, will, y'all
Oh,
just.
yeah, you're right. And that's 10 days.
And then, I don't know what people's plans are for the 4th. I don't know whether we can do a special meeting on the 6th or the 7th or the 8th. What works for everybody?
At this point, I'm open.
If there's no going on.
Stop with that.
Well, it's kind of long.
It's my one thing every year. Give me a break.
I'm just checking my calendar. I can do the 6th. Is there any way we could have it earlier in the evening? What is the schedule like?
Get any time on 6.
Melissa? 6th?
For now, I'm.
What time do you think?
I'm gonna be real honest, I've got a ball game at 6 o'clock with that kiddo. So, I know the world does not revolve around us at 6. I will be here either way, but
Maybe 5, is that?
Well, those who work out of town,
Yeah, I can do 5.
You do 5? Can you do 5? I can do 5.
Anybody put a lot of time?
Will that work for you, Matt?
Yeah.
Okay.
So 5 o'clock on July 6th, we'll do a special meeting. And then.
Everybody put it in your calendars. We'll see you all back here then.
So you want them to submit resume,
Submit a resume and then,
and what question would you like asked?
just a 1-page, why you want to be on the school board.
How you want
That's
to-
what you bring. It's kind of an open-ended, I think was the consensus.
Yeah.
And for them to deliver them to you here tomorrow?
And then do we get them ahead of time?
Yes,
Okay.
you'll be able to get those out, right? Just scan them in, I suppose. and
Yes.
send them to us. Anybody, anything else?
And do we need to do anything to make sure people know about this?
Right.
We
yeah,
will, I was just thinking, we will do a posting on Facebook and our social media account. We can also put something out to parents through Connect 5.
Will the newspaper publish something?
I'm sure that the newspaper will publish something.
I mean, I know there are people who don't do social media,
Right.
so we want to
Right.
make sure we give
Right.
everybody ample opportunity.
We can also ask the chamber to put something out,
That's good.
so try and think of different avenues.
Okay. All right, the next item is the proposal of the 2020-2021 BOE meeting dates. These are set up for once a month. I talked to, like, text back and forth with Craig today, and I just feel like we've got so much on our plate. I asked him, would it be okay with him if we go to 2 a month, and he said, no problem, it doesn't make any difference to him. So my thought is that we stay with 2 meetings a month for the next year, our normal schedule.
So the second and fourth.
Second and fourth Mondays of each month.
As a reminder, the second meeting of the month, KASB is available on the second Monday to respond to questions. Should the board ever need to have an attorney available to them. And these dates were worked collaboratively with Mr. Rankin and Jimmy. And as we do typically at this time of year, just so everyone knows, present the board with the list of dates, and then you have this time to think about it and then vote on it next time. So we will make the adjustments in this schedule, and the finalized will be available to you next time.
And that would be one meeting in December.
And
May.
Yeah.
May would be Memorial Day, so we wouldn't meet. December would be real close to Christmas.
That's
So we've done one meeting in December.
Is that okay?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
All right, the next item is to convene an executive session on personnel. How long do you think?
I only need about 5 minutes, I just need to use it.
5 minutes?
Are we going somewhere?
Well, typically, we have not been going somewhere because of the close proximity, but we can walk down and go to the professional learning room. And
I would rather the two of us move.
Okay, sounds good.
And is the executive room too small?
Yes, I mean, you would not be able to social distance in that space.
Deb, you need 5 minutes?
Yes, so make it 7 so that we have time to walk down the hall.
Okay. I move that the board convene an executive session for the purpose of discussing issues concerning an employee pursuant to the KOMA exception regarding personnel matters of non-elected personnel, and that the board return to the open meeting in this room at 7:48.
Second.
All those in favor?
I'm sorry, could I ask that Jane?
Oh, yeah, and we invited Deb and Jane.
Yes.